There you go, it'll go.
So Plano ISD. Plano ISD is a school district located in South Collin County. So you guys get a little idea. It's north of Dallas. It used to be a rural school district. It's now a much suburban urban district. Covers over 100 square miles, which is a pretty good sized school. As you can see from the image over here, this is what it is. Total building square foot is over 9 million square feet in just campus buildings. As you can see from their breakdown, they've got 44 elementaries, 13 middle, 6 high schools. And just so you know, Plano they're one of the only districts in the state that their high schools cover 9 through 11, and then we have 3 senior high campuses that look like small junior colleges. All right, if you have questions, ask Merchant later. His kids all went there. Total students is 61,000. It's grown every year for the last decade. I've watched these numbers grow. They used to be like at 35,000, but they're not as big as Frisco. Frisco ISD is actually one bigger. And their budget, that is $517 million. Just so you guys know what budgets look like. So their maintenance and operations budget, when you're looking at their pest control program, most people just think, oh, it's just their pest control budget. No, they have a total budget of $41 million for the entire maintenance and operations department. This is a pretty big chunk. Of that, the landscape portion is $1.7 million. That's just their landscape. That's some athletic fields, but that's also all the turf, mowing, everything. Their custodial contractor is $10 million, okay? And that's pretty much people, just so you guys know, that's pretty much people. Their IPM program, they have 1 supervisor, 3 applicators. Roughly, it runs about $83,000 per person, which is not just their salary, but their benefits and all the other stuff, that retirement that goes into it. Because they're not making, those techs are not making $83,000, I can tell you that. Roughly the budget's $350,000. What they have in their own budget, it's a sub-budget of this. For pesticides, they have a budget of $15,000. For supplies, and what I mean by supplies, snap traps, some exclusion stuff, $13,500, plus that's also where they use their money for training for their CEU licenses. And then the supervisor, David Lewis, also does their indoor air quality and asbestos program. Their indoor air quality is $10,000, and the reason we looked at both is because sometimes when there's an odor or something, we don't know which one it is. It's always bugs, but it's never. So bugs and mold go together. So 2 things happened at once last year. I applied for a school IPM work group grant through the Southern IPM Center. And we got this grant, and it was on quantifying the financial costs of school IPM. So we were getting this grant, and we were talking about what do we want to do, and working with it, I forgot to recognize that Merchant and our economist, who's tall like her fawn, Blake Bennett, are the 3 primaries on this grant. And we got to talking about it. So we decided, Blake especially, because he's the economist, really wanted to look at one district that he could get involved in. Now, I will be very honest, Blake also has a vested interest in Plano ISD because his kids go there. So he really wanted to start looking at, you know, what are their financial things, what are we doing? So we were wanting to do a couple of things. Develop an IPM continuum survey, which is where do you stand on your IPM program? Where are you in the world? And then the cost survey, and this is where we really use Plano as our training ground, is trying to figure this out. And then collecting work orders and application data. We were starting to look at that. At the same time Blake was starting to look at this stuff, Plano comes to me and says, I've got a really bad American cockroach problem at a campus. And, you know, I was like, all right, what have you been doing? And this took up a good part of my June and July. I mean, I was meeting them pretty early. So this is Otto Middle School. So I'm going to go through two things at once. But this is Auto Middle School. It was built about 5 years ago. It was built on a slab, but I'm going to show you the cardboard carton form in a second. But what's significant about this is this building was built on 3 different pours. So there's an expansion joint where this red line's at, and there's an expansion joint where this red line's at. This is the expansion joint that's right here. The reason this is a problem is that actually runs from the principal's office all the way back, and it's an exposed hallway. Now I want you to think about this for just a second, those of you that have done pest control. Come on. Oh. So this is how you pour form, right? You get a building, you put your plumbing in. Then they decided to use this stuff called cardboard carton form. And I've got news for y'all. Whoever thought this was a great idea in Texas ought to be just But they put this down, and then they put all the stuff down, and then they pour a slab. So you'll get expansion joints like this. So for you people who are entomologists in the room, think about cardboard and moisture, okay? Termites, cockroaches. Outside of this expansion joint, when we were walking the building, this is the principal's office. This is what you will see. We've got a lot of problems with soil. I've got a hole. This is literally at the bottom of the expansion joint. You can stick your arm up in it. All right, so that was just part of it, and those little guys, those cute little American cockroaches. Once we went inside, what we were seeing is we've got these machines that scrub the floors. They had water in them. The custodial people weren't doing this. I actually staged this whole thing so that I could take a right picture versus the wrong picture. They had floor drains, and they were trying to use the green drain thing. And then you see stuff like this. This is the glue board. I'm not entirely sure if that's correct because it was upside down. So solving the pest problem, this is what we first did. In working through this, Blake and I are looking at costs, we're looking at how they were doing applications and everything, again, trying to come up with our survey stuff. So we looked at work order data for the past 2 years. What we found was they've been dealing with that problem with the cockroaches for over 1.5 years, and it wasn't completely right. Did speak with David, spoke with the applicators about pesticide applications. Wasn't seeing they were doing it right. I mean, it was very interesting. Walked the school numerous times, met with the builders. The builders were great. We all need to hire some exterminators to do this. And I'll never forget, I looked at him and went, and what do you think we do? And he goes, oh, well, then what are we going to do? And I said, I'm working on solving the problem. I said, because we can't have these American cockroaches when school starts again in August. Can't have it. The principal's already having a fit. Talk with professionals. I mean, anybody who did cockroaches pretty much got a phone call from me in June and July, industry, trying to solve problems. What are we going to do? I mean, I almost went to the point where we were going to inject underneath the slab. What we ended up doing was just doing gel baiting. But I did it targeted. I sat down with the guys and said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And we did it according to the label, manufacturer rates, and did it the right way, and it was amazing. The American cockroach problem went away with just the baiting. And, it made me feel good that we didn't have to go big guns, but at the same time, I think that's what they really wanted. They really wanted to play with the chemicals. So we were solved, great, no problems so far, knock on wood.
Janet, did you put those bait stations? Do you use stations for the gel baits?
Nope. I did what the manufacturer said. And he said if they're coming up out of the floor drains, he said put them right next to the floor drain. If it was someplace where we weren't sure, we used just little cardboard things because I didn't have the little stations. So we just used cardboard and put it on the cardboard. Just put it was the size of a dime. I was trying to think. It wasn't the quarter. We didn't have to go to the quarter, but we had to do the dime size. And that's all we did.
What's the active in that gel?
I can't remember.
Okay.
It's Max Force Impact. You can go Google it. Okay, so developing the survey. So turning the corner, at the same time, like I said, we were doing 2 things. Our work group met in May. They all came to Dallas. We had a wonderful time. Sitting in a room going, no, this is what IPM is. No, this is what IPM is. We came up with our IPM Continuum Survey. If anybody has any questions about that, you can find it on our Southern Region IPM Work Group. The cost survey, it's basically asking the district, I will tell you this, what we really had problems with is getting our school districts to give us the full maintenance and operations budget. Even though it's public, they don't like to give that out. And I'm not entirely sure why they don't, but every school district has fought us on this. We use our software, the IPMcalculator.com, to actually inspect the campuses. We're doing that for validation purposes, so that everybody does the same thing across, because we're not just doing this in Texas, but Maine, Florida, California, and Alabama are also doing it. So we're doing that. And then when we do the data collection, we're looking at 2 full years of their work orders. I want to know how they're applying. So let's see if I can do this. So what Blake did, and yes, this is when your economist really stands up, because he went through all their work orders and literally entered everything into an Excel spreadsheet. Looked at everything. How many hours spent, what they were putting out, what they were doing, what they were treating for, even no activity. So I'm going to blow through these because I want to make sure we can stay on time. Total number of work orders per pest. The ping is fire ants. The second one is other ants. And then outdoor cockroaches, because this is really German cockroaches, so it's outdoor cockroaches and rats are the next big things. Then you take out fire ants. We took out the fire ants to see, okay, what else? Pigs, other ants, outdoor cockroaches, rats, oh, and a little bit of termites and some weeds, okay? Labor spent per pest. Fire ants. They're spending wicked amount of time on fire ants. And then again, other roaches, and then the rats. So again, and then termites. We all know that happens. And then chemical cost. They're spending, Paul, about $4,300 on fire ants.
Just wait, huh?
Just wait for his talk and you'll find out what the real weight. Okay. So this is what their work order looks like. I put this in so you guys can understand that when we're dealing with these schools, I don't care what clients you're dealing with, everything looks different. But in the school systems, every district is different. There's 1,026 school districts in Texas and no 2 do it alike. So they've got to put their name, their target pass, where they're supposed to be, their notes about the treatment, and enter products used. This is where it was fun with Blake, because Blake's hair started to stand on end, because he's like, they don't fill this out right. They just kind of skirted along, and I'm like, yes, and welcome to our world. So Blake brought it down. He looked at what are they doing to solve pest problems versus are they doing prevention? Because isn't IPM all about prevention? Yeah, just think about that for a second. What we were finding is their labor costs are around $33,000 for problem solving. For prevention. Whereas their labor cost for problem solving is $27,000. Their materials for problem solving is about $8,000. And then for prevention, it's about $10,000. So, it's about $35,000 for problem solving, and it's $43,000 for prevention. But yet the prevention's not really doing a whole lot. So basically what we looked at was they're spending more time on problem solving than prevention. This is really what it's coming down to. And this isn't like rocket science, this is just validating what I've already known and some others. But what we also found is, and this is really what's frustrating, the no activity found, 57 hours. Somebody calls, I got a bug, or my favorite is, it smells, and it's trash that needs to be taken out. The dead animal removal, that's another one, everybody needs to know that. And then what they're spending. So clearly our biggest problem with Plano has been their fire ants. The reason it is they do their fire ant baiting using extinguish during spring break. Spring break is the middle of March. Soil temperatures last year were there the last couple of years, not the right time. They take nearly 305 work orders controlling fire ants. That's 38% of their workload that they're having to deal with on fire ants. So we've talked about them, working with them on their fire ant thing, if it's cost effective, and basically the two targets that we've honed in right now on Plano are fire ants, getting them to get a good fire ant management program. Second of all, we've got to do a better job of educating, because the dead end calls are what's ruining them, and it's not just them. I'm seeing it in the study that Paul has already done with Conroe, but I've also seen it in other districts.
What do you mean by dead end calls?
Dead end calls are, there's no problem. They're having them come out to look at a dead animal. There's a dead cockroach, really? Dead cockroaches means we've worked. That's custodial that cleans up. There's no need to put an IPM coordinator out there to take care of something that's dead. All right, so what we've learned so far, and this is the takeaway message. Applicators vary on their application type, and I don't care if they all work for the same company, the same district, they're all trained the same way. You can put, because I watched it with Plano, all three guys took care of their American roaches 3 different ways. And all of them were a little on the sketchy side. They weren't really using the right products, which I found mind-blowing. The record keeping, okay, it's the #1 violation in our state with TDA when they do inspections on both sides of the fence. I can't believe this. I mean, you know, if you get, I can understand if you're brand new, maybe, but if you're a seasoned veteran, there should be no reason. Again, applicators are not fully aware of the chemical. Heaven forbid they should read a label, all right? Even though they know it, they don't read the labels right. Time, applicators don't keep good track of their time. They just guess. And I know this is in the industry as well. And then using IPM tactics vary by individual, not by district. The district can put something in, but the individual takes it on their own. So what I've learned, they've paid over $1 million for turf management, and they still have a fire ant program. This is something that I think needs to be addressed. Custodial contracted, there is no ownership from their custodial contractor. They have fought with them. And I can tell you this, every time the school goes out for contract with a custodial, their program drops. No substitute for best management practices. I cannot stress that enough. There is no good substitute for that. Education about the IPM program is limited to maintenance staff and the food service staff, but clearly for what this showed me is teachers, principals, everybody else needs to know what's going on. And again, if you didn't know this, pest management is people management. And I'm acknowledging all of the funding that I'm supposed to acknowledge now. USDA, EPA, anybody. These opinions do not reflect them. And with that, I'm done. Questions? Good.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Just a comment about this is our better school districts with regards to IPM. So this is what we wish we could get a lot of schools up to the quality of this district. At least they know what IPM is, maintenance and food service staff.
And they've been very gracious.
I have a question. Do you think that they really bumped up all their fire efforts as kind of a result of what was in the news? Like, was that just like the last couple years, or is that historically?
Historically, they're just not literally they're not doing their due diligence on the fire ant. And Paul will tell you exactly, because he's going to tell you about Corpus.
Yeah.
What was on the news? I missed